Beautiful.
Alrighty, quack, quack.
Ah.
Let's go. Quack, quack. Come on, quack, quack.
Oh, quack.
Brother Dwayne.
I want half of my audience right there.
Isn't that always the case?
You know how it is.
The kids, they
Thank
keep
you.
multiplying.
Isn't it a beautiful day today?
Amen.
It ought to be a sin to be inside on such a beautiful day today. This concludes my sermon. Let's go. It's a privilege to be back here. For those of you that don't know me, I was thinking about it on the way over this morning. It was 20 years ago this year that I left. I had the privilege of pastoring here in the early 90s, from 91 to 95.
Wow.
And so it's been a few years. I've been blessed to be back a couple of times, and it's always a deep honor and privilege to come back here, because this is where God chose, out of all the places on the planet that He could have selected for me to begin ministry, He picked here. And that makes this place for me a really special place.
Amen.
And it's always good to come back and to see the folks and see how things are going. I appreciate your pastor offering me the opportunity to come. I knew him when he was somewhere in this vicinity when he was a kid, and he's still a kid to me. So I was afraid he wasn't going to get to go because of the kidney stone thing. I've given birth to twins twice, and so I know what that is like. And if you have that on your list of things to do before Jesus comes, just go ahead and scratch it off, because I just don't recommend kidney stones, all right? Was it something I said?
Yeah, I saw somebody walk by.
Our world today, you know what, let me hang on for just a second. I'm going to do things a little different than the way I normally do it. I think Tom's a little familiar with it. The way I do things, I'll have a handout for you to follow along with, and I normally have a PowerPoint. I don't have either one of those today. For me, it's a little bit different in the way I do things, but I thought I would share this with you today. The world that we live in today, going all the way back to the time right after Adam and Eve. So if you will, begin with their children, all the way through right now, is looking for something. They're looking for answers. What they don't realize oftentimes is they're looking for truth. And that would be true for you and for me as well. We're looking for truth. We want things to make sense to us. There's a lot of things outside of this setting that claim to be true. There's a lot of religions. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of philosophies and thoughts that claim to be true. Is it possible that there are truths outside of this building and outside of this book? Of course it's possible. I mean, it's true that the sun shines. It's true that we're in a solar system. It's true that stars are in the sky. It's true that we experience seasons. Are there truths outside of here? Sure there are. But we're looking for an ultimate truth. If you want to turn to John chapter 18, and just put your finger there. We're going to read some of that in a little bit. And since I mentioned John, the gentleman back there in the back row with me is John, and he was a member of the church that I just pastored. And he decided to sneak out today and visit with me and hang out with you guys, and I just really appreciate him doing that. He's a dear friend and brother in the Lord. I actually had the privilege of baptizing him a few months ago, and he's a very special man to me. Y'all remember what happened roughly 50 years ago? It was a late fall day. The world was busy going about its usual business. And something happened on that day that changed our planet. And it really changed our country. If I gave you a date, would you know what it was? November 22nd, 1963.
Yep. Yep.
There was a president driving through the city of Dallas in an open vehicle, and his life was cut short. President Kennedy, his father, as you might expect, was heavily saddened and sorrowful after that event, as was the nation. But his dad did something that was kind of interesting. For roughly a year after that horrible event, his dad went out and searched for answers. He wanted to make sense of the insanity. He wanted to understand how such a horrible event could happen. He went from church to denomination to educational facility. He talked to hundreds of people, interviewing them, asking them questions in search of truth. In search of truth. And we all have an innate, internal, God-given desire to know truth and to understand truth. If you're a parent, you might notice that your children wrestle with that. You might notice that even yourself have wrestled with that. Consumers want to know the truth. Consumers want to know, right? Do you realize that there is somewhere in the vicinity of 135 different kinds of toothpaste?
Oh.
If you get the store big enough, with the shelves long enough, they're going to give you so many different choices. How do you know which one is the best? How do you know which one is the most efficient? How do you know which one gives you the highest results possible? What's the truth? If you go out for dinner, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, I'm not sure how many of those are still around here, but are close enough within driving distance. Denny's, right? Then your restaurants, then your Red Robin, and all of these choices to select from. Well, which one's the best? Which one's the cheapest? Which one's the most nutritious? How do you find all that out? What difference does it make? We're looking for truth. We're looking for truth in relationships. I love this man over here, and I'm so thrilled all these years later to see Tom still using the gifts God has given him in leading in worship. And brother, I can't tell you how that blesses me. I thank you. And yeah. And until we both enter eternity, there's always going to be a very special bond between you and I for the time that I get to spend here with you. And we have that with each other. We want to be connected. If you're in a dating situation, you want to know, man, is this man or this woman, is this the best person for me? We're all in search of truth. Now, here's a very important point that I want you to get. Truth is always related to trust. It's always related to trust. Truth and trust are twins. In the passage that we're going to look at today, Jesus has just been arrested. I'm guessing that I'm not going to have the privilege of being with you on April the 5th for Easter. And so this is kind of an Easter message a little bit early, if that's all right with you. Jesus has just been arrested. Everything that he has been telling his disciples is now coming to pass. And he's been arrested. Look with me at verse 29 of John chapter 18. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." And Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," the Jews replied. This happened so that the words Jesus had spoken, indicating the kind of death he was going to die, would be fulfilled. Pilate then went back inside the palace summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the King of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. And so you can see that it's a question that has gone on for centuries and for centuries. This is an interesting story. If any of you have ever studied law or know anything about law or maybe watch Law and Order or something, you might notice that there are some things that have occurred here that are, well, they're just flat out illegal. In the matter of just a few hours, Jesus goes through 6 separate trials. 6 separate trials. All of them extremely illegal. Isn't that amazing? But it's not surprising when you think that Satan is the god of this world, and he breaks the very rules he wants us to follow. Jesus is first taken to Annas. Annas used to be the high priest, a man of power and of prestige. To Jesus, Jesus was taken to him at night, and we're not exactly sure why. And it's highly illegal for this to occur. No representation, no witnesses, no anything. He's taken to this man and judged. Caiaphas. Jesus is taken to Caiaphas' home after that at night. Caiaphas was the standing high priest at that point. Again at night, again no direct witnesses and no representation. He's next taken to the Sanhedrin, the 70 rulers, and Caiaphas was there. 3 of the trials were with religious entities, and 3 were legal. And now he is brought before Pilate, the governor. And he is asking, "Why did you bring him to me?" He told us not to pay our taxes. Jesus never said that. They're lying. They're after the death sentence. They're after killing Christ. So they said that he was a king. Highly illegal to claim to be a king at this time. Okay, so now we have issues and implications with the government. Did Jesus ever say that? He said, "No, my kingdom is not of this world. We will be judged by the truth of God." Any of you know offhand John 14:6? Jesus said,
I am the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
thank you,
Amen. Amen.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. So many of us are searching so deeply and in so many nefarious ways and areas for truth. And there's one who came and said, "I am the truth. I am the truth." Humanity is being put on trial here, searching for the truth. Truth is not whatever you believe. When I was at Cal Baptist back in the 80s, we went through some evangelistic training. And we went out to Palm Desert to walk the streets and to practice our evangelistic training. I encountered a man there at a door, my partner and I, and he said that he was a religious scientist. I said, okay, so what exactly does a religious scientist believe? He said, we believe everything. We believe everything. So I said, so everybody's right? Yes. And that mean everybody's wrong? Well, it could. How do you have such a broad understanding of that? How can you reconcile that? Truth is not whatever makes you feel good, irregardless of the consequences or who it hurts. There are a lot of things in life that do not feel good but are true. Truth is not whatever works for you. The narcissistic tendencies, self-centered, selfish and self-righteous. I believe Shirley MacLaine put it this way: I am a God. I'm my own God. And I will be reincarnated as whoever, and I'll end up being my own God again. Interesting. Truth is not the way the majority goes. Everybody's doing it. Have you heard that? That was a big phrase in the 60s and 70s. And I was around back in those days, but I wasn't very old. Look at the Bible at every committee meeting or vote. Every committee meeting or vote, God lost in the Bible. That's kind of sad, but that's the nature of humanity. Well, you Christians, you all are just narrow-minded. You use circular reasoning. You use the Bible to prove the Bible. You use the Bible to prove that God is true. Okay. There are 6 major sources outside of this book. Contemporaries at the time of Christ's life, birth, life, and death. They were historians. You might be familiar with the name Josephus. You've probably read about him or heard about him. Josephus was a historian. There were others around him, 5 others at the time, who wrote about what was happening in their world at that time. They had no reason to give name to Christ, to give credibility to him, but all of their writings do. All of their writings do. Just for giggles. Just for giggles. Let me share with you something. The Old Testament contains over 300 references to the Messiah that were fulfilled in Jesus. If you like math or statistics or something like this, you will enjoy this. It has been calculated that the probability of one man fulfilling only 8 of these prophecies would be 1 in 10 to the 17th power, which is 1 with 17 zeros behind it. Only 8 of them, right? Or 1 chance in 100 quadrillion. I can't even say that word, much less understand how big a number that is. The odds of just 40 prophecies being fulfilled is 1 chance in 10 to the 157th power. That is 10 with 156 zeros behind it. The number of atoms in the universe is calculated to be somewhere around 10 to the 86th power, 10 followed by 86 zeros. It would be far easier to pick out one atom while blind